So, good day, everyone, and welcome to the second leg of UP Manila Syllabus webinar series IOL 101. I'm Gabby Velasquez, a registered pharmacist and Syllabus Communication Officer, and today I'll be facilitating the webinar session. So, in the first two quarters of the year 2024, we have had a series of public webinars and knowledge sharing sessions involving both clinical and technical concepts of health data standards and interoperability. Now, as a standards and interoperability lab here in the Philippines, we envision achieving universal health coverage through digital health capacity building, data portability, and appropriate use of health technology with the help of health data governance and, of course, ethical health data management. So here we at UPMC Lab, we're offering this series of webinar sessions that will dive deep into the foundations of digital health interoperability, in which we want to equip you with insights from experts, practical knowledge, and real-world cases. So today we will learn about Terminology Service 101, which is a basic and introductory session tackling its importance and the different tools that are being used for terminology service. So once again, we thank you so much for the support and we hope you learn a lot from our session. So now, may I introduce our speaker for this session of IOL 101. Our speaker, Mr. John Michael Herber, is a registered nurse by profession and an expert in technical support and systems design with nearly a decade of experience in the digital health industry. He is a candidate for Master of Science in Health Informatics in the University of the Philippines Manila College of Medicine. Currently, he works as a clinical data analyst at the St. Luke's Medical Center and also a support facilitator for the Digital Health Planning National Systems course under TechChange Inc. As the terminology specialist and chief terminology officer of UPMC Lab, he supervises the interoperability analyst and lead engineer in using the terminology standards in developing the Philippine-based FHIR profiles. All right, so without any further ado, to present us the basics and importance of terminology service, let us virtually welcome Mr. John Michael Herber. Herber, over to you.
Morning. Thank you, Gabby, for that introduction. So I am surprised with the update of my bio, no? So let me just share my screen briefly. Um, can you stop sharing the screen? Yeah, there you go. One moment. Is my screen audible already? Oh, it can my screen is my screen
Yes, we can see your
there?
screen,
Yes, we
sir,
can see
and
your
you're
screen.
audible. Audible. Okay.
Okay, let's do this. Okay, so good morning, everyone. So thank you for sharing your time with me to to this session where I will be talking about terminology services. So we've been doing a series of webinars already for some time, and at terminology services could be a bit technical. So we will take a step back briefly so that we could get foundational concepts in order for you to appreciate terminology services. Okay, so just a disclaimer. Okay, so for this hour, we will be talking about five main topics. So first, we'll be having a recap of health data standards, and then eventually we'll delve into the terminology service, the context of terminology services. And then the next three topics after that would be how do we go about the use of terminology services, particularly identifying terminology resources for a particular use case, which is viral hepatitis, and then tools that are available around for us to maximize the use of terminology services, and how are they actually implemented. These are more on that for the developer people already. Okay. So objectives of this webinar, hopefully you will be able to review the value of using health data standards. You will be introduced to the concept of terminology services, particularly its features and benefits, and then familiarize with different tools used for terminology services, and understand how these terminology services are implemented. Okay, so let's formally begin. So let's have that recap of the role of standard terminology in interoperability. So here, I think for those who were able to join my previous webinars, this has been a recurring slide for me. So here you could see three different EMRs. You could see three different EMRs here. One EMR would be saying hepatitis B for documenting hepatitis B for a hepatitis B patient. And then another facility will say viral hepatitis, quote unquote, for a private facility having their own EMR. And then another facility have documenting hepatitis B positive for those for a patient that is positive for hepatitis B. So when they try to submit this information, they will be submitting hepatitis B, viral hepatitis, and hepatitis B positive. It gets it's consolidated rather into a centralized database in the right side. Okay. So now if you're a program manager and you ask an IT person, I want a list of patients with quote unquote hepatitis B. So if your IT professional is not that familiar with the context of healthcare terminologies, he will just blindly follow that he will look for um, for for patients that are positive for quote unquote hepatitis B. So here you could see, I could ask the audience, if I were an IT professional searching for hepatitis B only, how many patients will I get? Will it be one, two, or three patients? Can I have some responses? So what do you think? Okay, Gabby says one, thank you. Two, one, one said two, another said one. Not three, right? Definitely not three because it's not the same. However, as an IT professional, when you do querying, SQL querying, if you put double quotes or single quotes in a term, it would have to be an exact match. So the correct quote unquote correct answer will be one. So if you tell that IT developer to do the hepatitis B, quote unquote, it will not be able to get this particular patient because it has to be an exact match. So you could see the struggle of consolidating data. Yes, yes. Thank you for that. Okay. So there will be instances that clinically there has to be three patients who are positive for hepatitis B, but from a machine or a computer perspective, when you ask for quote unquote hepatitis B, you will only get one. So you could see if there are no standards, you will not be able to get all the bigger picture uh of the disease condition that you're trying to monitor. And because of this, you need to have health data standards. So health data standards are defined as the predefined agreements used to support interoperable communication between health information exchange components. So for those who were able to attend Dr. Alvin's webinar last week, he was able to show this particular framework under the Open Health Information Exchange. You could see here different layers. You could see here at the bottom side, you have the point of service. So this will be the all um, clinician facing clinician-facing applications, and these different point of service applications will have to interact with the interoperability layer. And this interoperability layer will interact with different component layers, particularly the business domain services containing the info on logistics, shared health record, health management, and finance and insurance services. Also, you could see here the registry services, which you could see the whole catalog of different contexts. So here you could see product catalog for medications, health worker registry for all the list of health workers in the country, all the list of facilities in the country, list of patients or individuals within the country, and you could see here at the left side the list of terms that has to be used when you're using an health information system. So what's the benefit of having if we are to materialize everything and we have this certain environment of or ecosystem of digital health applications working side by side. So the benefit of that will be the following. So these are just brief values that I have placed because I have another webinar before that already. So it will provide safe and effective clinical care, create longitudinal care records. So the data will now will be what we call from womb to tomb. No, so during the patient's journey, you could see how the patient fares throughout their life stages. You could also have data quality. There will be interoperability between systems. It provides report aggregation and evaluation, and later on provide analytics and business intelligence. Okay. So for us to achieve health data standards, we need to answer the question, how do computers talk to each other? So that's the main question that we have to answer. And for them to answer for this question to be answered, we need to have interoperability or the ability to exchange data standards between systems. And for us to achieve to reap the full meaning of interoperability, we need to achieve two types of interoperability. Particularly, first is the semantic or the word standard. So these are the context or the intent of your message, and the syntactics, the format of your message. So for this webinar, we will be focusing on the semantic standards. Okay. So this might be a mind-blowing slide for some of you, but basically what I'm trying to focus here is that there is a format that has to be followed, and there has to be a context. So here you could see 80061 would pertain to lipid profile. 13457-7 will be pertaining to LDL. 2093-3 will be pertaining to cholesterol. So if all the point of service applications, let's go back here, would follow the same definitions, the same terminologies. So regardless of how the the message will be sent to you, you will be able to understand it from a clinical context. So for example, I am a laboratory information system sending a lipid profile result to an EMR. So if I send it 80061 and the EMR has a 80061 as well, so they will be able to understand what is the context of this result already, which is a lipid profile. Okay. So again, the role of standards of terminology interoperability is from this one that we, I think, commonly know. So the present or hopefully the future would be to standardize these codes. So from different EMRs or different applications, we can set hepatitis B having a particular code already, viral hepatitis with this particular code, and hepatitis B positive with this particular code. So when they submit their data to a national health data repository, they will have an ambiguous shared meaning. Okay? However, the reality is all EMRs already have their own codes internally. So how do we go about that? So here is the main introduction to our topic. So how do we go about? There will be instances and there will be a big rework for different EMRs or health information system developers if we are to impose this approach, right? So now we have to find a way to have that balance between for them to not to do major changes, but we still need to have that certain level of standards. And the goal is for a technology that we call a terminology service. So how do we go about this one? So here we will be formally introducing the terminology services. Okay. So again, let's just go back to the OpenHIE framework. We could see here under registry services. So under registry services is just the main list of it's like a single source of truth of different registries. So you can see here medications, health workers, facilities, clients or individuals or patients, and again, terminology. Yeah. Okay. So the OpenHIE defines terminology services as a component of the health information architecture that provides a centralized source for health information exchange standards and definitions. So under the terminology services, it includes terminologies, ontologies, dictionaries, code systems, and value sets. Also, the other HIE components can use whatever is inside the terminology services to normalize clinical data and achieve consistent aggregation and reporting, achieving semantic interoperability. So at least from a clinical perspective, we are understanding the message that we are trying to submit. Okay. So just some terminologies, definition of terms rather. So terminology is a language that people and systems can use to communicate health data. So conceptually, it's just the terms, basically. So from an international perspective, we have ICD-10 for the Philippines, very familiar um, international code set. We also have ICD-11. Under HL7, there are gender codes for male, female, other, and unknown. And we also have LOINC codes. From the local perspective, we have the Philippine National Health Data and other dictionaries unique code set used by a hospital system. So definitely there will be some unique data code set that are being used by different health information systems from different health facilities. Okay? Terminology services is a single source of truth of terminologies in your architecture. So it makes it easy to share codes and mappings between codes in a standards-based format, and it can be used to validate and normalize data against published standards. So before we go into to the terminology services data uh, um, the context of terminology services. So let's just have some additional terminologies again. I'm getting confused by the terminology because the context the the webinars about terminology and then introducing a lot of terminologies to everyone. So anyway, I'm just introducing new concepts with you in relation to terminology services. So here you could see, I introduced three more terms. So first is the code system. So a code system is a collection of concepts or ideas with unique identifiers that exist in some sort of structure. So a code system should provide each concept with a code system specific meaning. So usually it has an code concept identifier and a string description. So may code siya 000 and then there's a description for what that code is related to. So some example of code systems available are ICD-10, SNOMED CT, RVS, what else? NOINC, basically. So the totality of a international code set usually is a code system. On the other hand, we have what we call a value set. So a value set is a resource instance that specifies a set of codes drawn from one or more code systems intended to use for a particular context. So for example, you have a diagnosis field and then you wanted to place a list of diagnoses there. So if you put ICD-10 there, or at least SNOMED City has 380,000 codes. And if you try to pull the 380,000 codes for a diagnosis field, it will be very challenging for the system. It will have performance issues. So, but the purpose of the value sets is to trim down the options that would be available for your drop down menu. Okay. So here you could see it's usually linked from a code system. It says here. So for example, for the example here, you need an ICD-10 cancer code. So the code system will be ICD-10 and you will have a value set of ICD-10 cancer code. So it's like a funnel, trimming down the list that you wanted to place under your health information system. So the last concept that I want to share is the concept maps. So a concept map is a statement of relationships from one set of concepts to another, to one or more other concepts. So usually you do mapping here. So on the right side, you could see the relationship between the three terms that I've mentioned. So code system, again, defines a set of concepts with a coherent meaning. So it has that totality. And then a value set is a selection of set of codes for a particular context. So here you could see it has been trimmed down only to fracture-related codes. And the concept map has a mapping between different systems. So you could see here that 263.204.007, or the fracture of shaft of ulna under SNOMED CT, is equivalent to S52.209A, or the unspecified fracture of shaft of blah 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 under the ICD-10 CM. So that's the relationship of different concepts under terminology services. So what's the use of the typical functions of a terminology service? So terminology services can help you provide as a single source of truth can provide you the following. It can help you a query if the certain code system is existing. So a sample question here is that is Nomad City available from this terminology service? It can also provide validation of a concept or code. Is code 123456789 a SNOMED City code? You can also do translation. What is the LOINC code for a Clinic A CBC code? So remember the concept map. So for example, Clinic A has CBC. What is the LOINC equivalent of the EBC code that I've submitted? Also, you could also get it can confirm if there are a subset of a value set. So is the maternal health value set available? And lastly, a resolution. So it gives you the list of available options for a particular context. So for this sample question, give me the list of the contents of the maternal value set. It gives it instead of you giving all related programs, it just gives you a very specific context, particularly on maternal health. Okay. So why use terminology services? So the main benefit is it uniquely defines and identifies both clinical and monitoring and evaluation concepts throughout the country. So like if just imagine if we have that single source of truth of the available options, even in gender only. So if you there would be systems there where male will be 1, male will be M, male can be 0 as well, and etc. So once we have terminology services, we can have the single source of truth. Different health information systems can just get that data, and it means that every health information system could have the same understanding. So for example, M for male. So all health information systems will have M for male already. So once they submit the data for the administrative sex, there will be an ambiguous shared meaning for data analysis. Okay. Also, it used to align patient level or indicator level across point of service enterprise level applications. So I think I will mention that already. And makes it possible to load local codes to map these to national codes or even local or system codes. So for example, facility A has their own codes, facility B has their own codes. So we can do what we call, what I mentioned earlier, the concept mapping, where it translates that local codes from the health facility going up from subnational to a national level already. Okay. So how do we use this very abstract concept of terminology services? So I've placed here just a brief um, um, introduction on from a clinical perspective, and then we'll be going to a technical perspective as well. So here, how do we identify if you have a particular use case, how do we identify which parts of your particular form needs a value sets creation? Okay. So let's just go through this one briefly. So the first one is to identify your use case. So for this particular case study, we're going to use the viral hepatitis case report form and care form. So there, you could see on your screen, there are a lot of things that needs to be filled out, and then you have to analyze eventually which of the fields here has a value set. Okay. So step 2 would be identify which particular fields of the form will utilize a controlled dictionary. So usually, if you try to envision these paper-based forms, how would they go about when they are already electronic or digital format? Are they going to be on drop-downs or radio buttons, etc.? Okay, so here's an example. So you could see here, I highlighted in green, client type can be a drop-down eventually. So that can be a possible candidate for a value set. Sex assigned at birth, self-identity, civil status, nationality, address, right? We have a PSGC, Philippine statistics, I think, for geographical codes. I don't know the S, but look for PSGC. So there we have a national standard for our geographical data. So that's something that we can also place in a terminology server. So here you could see treatment. Is the patient eligible for treatment? So you could see here there are 4 options. So that's something that we can also put as a value set. Treatment status, regimen, and discontinuation code. Okay? So what we do in CLab, we create a worksheet. So this is not a mandatory process, but this is how we prefer to do mapping or analysis of different identifying different value sets. So we just place different value sets here, client type, sex assigned at birth, etc. So we just fill it down, and then we try to list down the value list. Okay, there. So list the value list that will be utilized for use case. So client type has 3 options. Sex assigned at birth will have 2, self-identity will have 2, etc., etc. Okay. Next, we will be identify which of these fields in the value set will come from fire and those that will not. So fire, again, for those not yet introduced to fire, so it's the standard um, syntactic format, so the message format of how we exchange data. Fire has also introduced some value sets that are encompassing um, regardless of use cases. So for example, administrative sex. Okay, so you could see here, I've identified them. So here you could see gender to be assigned at fire. Marital status is present in fire because it's being asked for in relation to the patient's details. And the rest are not fire level already. Okay. So now, for those that are not found in fire, you will need to create what we call a URI for code systems and value sets in the worksheet. Okay. So from a technical perspective, you need what we call a URL. So that's what they'll be using for the developers to call the options later on. So we'll get to that later. A bit just this, I'll work on that. Okay. Anyway, there. So for every field that needs a value set, you will be identifying its code system and value set. I hope I made sense there. So for example, for fire, you look for fire, look for the administrative gender um, data on fire, and then you will assign a code system and a value set. Okay? So now for those value sets that are not found in fire, use a terminology service to create those URIs for the code system and value set. Okay? So what are these tools that we have? So CLab has this grateful note to have worked with an Australian agency that has what we call an Onto server. So okay, so let's just briefly introduce the creator of the tools that I will be introducing. So we have what we call the Onto server. So this Onto server is a suite of applications that we can use for terminology services. It's owned and managed by the Australian eHealth Research Centre of the Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organization, or CSIRO. So CSIRO is an Australian government agency responsible for scientific research. So Onto Server is a world-leading clinical terminology server implementing FAR terminology service API supporting syndication-based content distribution. So syndication is like a rollout. So for example, you have the single source of truth, and then you can go down. So syndication is like a roll. It gives you a copy of the master copy downwards. So for example, in the setting of the Philippines, so we can do a national, possibly from a national release center, and then they will roll out that data to different regions, different cities, municipalities, barangay, something like that. So that's the syndicated approach of the Onto server. And has been labeled also as the gold standard for fire terminology server. Okay? And it simplifies use of clinical terminology in other code systems by addressing key challenges faced by implementers such as Loin and SlowMed CP. So they have 2 tools. There are a lot of tools, but for this session, we'll be talking about 2 tools only, which is Snapper and Shrimp, to be shown later. So Snapper is an authoring tool. So you could see on your screen the user interface of Snapper. So you need to have code systems and value sets at the very least. That's the main basic requirements when you try to do terminology services. So Snapper is a user-friendly web-based application where you can create concept maps and to author HL75 terminology services that can be published on your own FHIR terminology server, and it can be used eventually to different software systems. So usually, the FHIR resources that is being done by Snapper can be downloaded in a JSON format, a bit technical already. So there are two types of Snapper, Snapper author. So basically you do authoring. So you whatever from the Excel, remember the Excel that I've created, we're going to make it more machine readable because the Excel can only be understood by human. The Excel cannot be understood by software systems. So we need to find a way to translate these spreadsheets into a machine readable format, which is what we call like a JSON format. And then we also have Snapper map. So it's used for authoring maps from legacy terminology to standard-based terminologies. So features of Snapper, it helps us author and maintain file resources through the use of code systems, value sets, and concept maps. It uploads file sources to the FHIR terminology service and assists user in mapping and maintenance of SNOMED city content, including AutoMap. So I haven't tried personally AutoMap, but I've done the mapping already. Also, it has a built-in walkthrough tool. So you could see here the tool. So if you're not familiar, you can go to the Snapper website. So you can just click on that and they will guide you how to go about different setting up your FHIR terminology server and creating different code systems and values. Yeah. Okay. So when you click on the FHIR code systems, you will be drawn to this one. You will have to identify what code system are you trying to build. Once you've done that, you're going to put your codes eventually. So remember the codes that the spreadsheet that we've done earlier. So we're going to build that later on into the code system. Value sets a bit similar. So remember the difference between code system and value sets. The code system is the totality of the terms that you're going to use, and value sets will be just a subset for a particular use case. Okay? So they might be a bit confusing, but value sets are more specific to a particular use case. Okay? Concept map, usually you do the translation here. You have the source and the target. So the source is, for example, you have your own EMR with an ABC code. And then the target value set would be ABC should be 1, 2, 3. Okay. So once you've done your Snapper, you've done the build of your code systems and value sets, and you were able to upload it to a FHIR server. Once you've done that, you can use Shrimp. Okay. So this one, usually terminologists use this, informaticists. So it's a bit technical, but you need to have some level of clinical concepts as well. So for the more clinician side, we have what we call a Shrimp. So this Shrimp is a browser basically. So for all the code systems and value sets that you've created, you can just look for them here and you can find the relationships here already in the Shrimp browser. So again, Shrimp is a free online browser for any FHIR code system, particularly hierarchical and optimized for SNOMED endpoint. And Shrimp can be connected to any Onto server, so what I've mentioned earlier. So this Shrimp is connected to a Snapper to get its data. Okay, so using RESTful FHIR APIs and can display hierarchical ontology that has been loaded as a FHIR. So here you could see we've selected the code system of SNOMED, and you could see the different more specific terminologies under the body structure. Here you could see another one. When you try to drill down, okay. So when you click on anatomical or acquired body structure, it goes down further. So that's another topic for SNOMED City. I've done a talk on SNOMED, I think last May, but SNOMED has that network of that semantic network of terminologies. So they were able to do very complex mapping already. So we're going to get acquired body structure, and it goes further down the line. Okay. So with the use of Shrimp, so the Snapper will be a bit more technical. The Shrimp will be more for general use. because it help its users easily and quickly search content or browse the hierarchies of a range of terminologies. So it helps us have an efficient search, visualization, exploration of the hierarchy. Okay. So if you scroll down a bit, when you go to a shrimp website, you could see here different terms. You could search here. There. Okay. Then you need to connect your Fire server here. So whatever you've done in the Snapper, you have to connect it here so that you could get your terminology list. You could see here the different code systems, value sets, and expression constraint language, or the concept mapping that we've done. You could see here the filter. So you could filter, since you can do multiple code systems, you can filter it there. The list of code systems, the version list, how to narrow, then the list of terms. Then this is the diagram view of the code systems. At the bottom part of the page, you could see the diagram view. So if you use SNOMED City browser, for those who were able to attend the previous webinar, so it has a diagrammatic format. So you could see that as well in the SNOMED City browser. Then you could see more term properties and details. So you could see your codes, preferred term, synonyms. Is it still a primitive one? Is it still active or not? Okay. So I've talked a lot about terminology services. So I feel like people will still be mind blown. How do we go about that? So I've tried to create three rather use cases. So I hope it makes more sense to the audience right now. So first is the value set resolution. So it returns the content. So for a particular use case, we need to get the content of the history of exposure responses for the viral hepatitis case report form. So um in the in the viral hepatitis case report form, there is a section there what we call a medical history of the individual. And you have four options there. You can have yes, the patient has a history of this particular. Sige, for this particular use case, did the patient receive a tattoo? That's the question in the case report form. So the responses will be no, unknown or not applicable. Third would be yes, I've received a tattoo within 6 months, and I've received a tattoo more than 6 months ago. So what happens here is that when your case report form is already digital, and you're trying to get the accepted responses for this particular question, so the system will call the terminology service telling me, please get me the list of accepted history of exposure options. So once the EMR or the health information system interacts with the terminology service, it returns the published accepted options for the history of exposure from a reference terminology. So it goes back to the EMR with the following option that I've mentioned earlier. No, unknown or NA, yes, more than 6 months ago, yes, within past 6 months. So that's one of the main function of the terminology services. So the benefit, again, standardized responses. We will not have yes, so we will not know the main context of yes. Is it more than 6 months ago? Is it within the past 6 months? So it helps us standardize the clinical data that we are trying to answer. Okay. So now the clinician has received the accepted responses, valid responses for this particular question. Now they will submit the data. Here we can also use code validation. So is code VHX yes, there's 6 in the history of exposure viral hepatitis code system. So just for context, the responses of the viral hepatitis are not present in any international code system. So for this particular use case, we need to create our own code systems and value sets. So for this one, the yes, if the patient has received a tattoo within the past 6 months, there is a back-end code to it, which is the VHX EXP yes less 6, something like that. So now what will happen is, once the EMR or the clinician clicks submit, the EMR the EMR will submit that data to the terminology service and answer the question, is the code VHEXP yes less 6 is under the code system of history of viral hepatitis, and it validates the requested code if it is existing or not. So there are two ways after that validation. It can return to the EMR, yes, that's a valid response. So that's accepted. And then since it's a valid response, that data that you've submitted can be submitted to a centralized repository. Okay, so the question, did the patient have a tattoo? Yes, within the past 6 months. Okay. What if it's an incorrect? So for example, I made my own ABC. Is ABC in the history of viral hepatitis code system? No. So it will say that's not that this is something that the system that the terminology service does not recognize. So it really depends now. Usually we reject the message, so it will not pass through the national data repository anymore. So that's two different use cases of terminology services. So lastly, I think the main question that I've presented earlier, what is the SNOMED CT code for facility EMR's hepatitis B code? So remember the first diagram way back earlier. So you have 3 different EMRs, hepatitis B1, 2, 3 for government. Private EMRA has an ABC viral hepatitis. Private EMRB has a Hep B, quote unquote, viral hepatitis B positive. So from the EMR perspective, there has to be, for this code, there will be no more effort. Just retain whatever they have. However, this EMR has to have a mapping activity. So when I say 1, 2, 3, it means that it is a 660710002 to SNOMED. ABC of private EMRA means 660710002 of SNOMED CT, and Hep D for private EMR equates to 660710002. So whenever they try to submit their data and passes through the terminology service, the terminology service will check, okay, this is facility private EMRA, and I have received a code ABC. I will check within my system, within the terminology service, what is the equivalent of ABC for private EMRA. Okay, ABC means 660710002. So now I will return the value from I will translate rather the value of ABC to 660710002 or the hepatitis B under SNOMED CT. And later, eventually, it will go through the National Health Data Repository having an unambiguous shared name. So again, also for 1, 2, 3, it will be translated going to hepatitis B, and Hep B translated to 660 blah 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 to have an unambiguous shared name. Okay, so I think that's my last slide. So basically, you need health data standards, number 1, and having health data standards does not equate to a successful implementation. You really need standards to be implemented by different health information systems. And for us to achieve that, we need to have what we call the terminology service. And terminology service, not a magic software that will automatically do the automation for us. There has to be a process for us to translate different clinical context to something more machine readable, and we have to test that eventually, and eventually test it amongst different users of the health information systems until we have achieved the truest benefit of having terminology services and of an unambiguous shared meaning. Okay, I think that's my last slide. I don't know. I think it's a bit technical, and I'll try to answer. I hope you've learned, and I'll try to answer more questions if you have any. Actually, I have 2 already with me. But first, I'll turn it over to Gabby. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Per, for that. I know it was a very technical concept, but in fairness to you, you're able to simplify such a complex topic. And I know he introduced to us the basic concepts and the essential tools, but I guess this will be more appreciated if it was a hands-on training, no? I think it would be more ideal if hands-on training. So with that, I would just like to say na if you guys are interested in our basic and advanced interoperability training courses for with UPM Lab with practical training and hands-on workshops, so please reach out via email. Okay.
While you're sorting that one out, I'll try to answer the questions.
Yes,
Miss.
please go ahead, Sir Per.
Okay. For the first question, how's the pricing for the use of these tools, sir? And if there's a way to use API calls for testing. So the pricing, I cannot answer that one. I think we have to discuss. I escalate that to our director, the pricing. I think I will not be able to answer that. However, is there a way to use API calls for testing? So I'm not sure if you were able to attend one of our connectathons last October. So we tried to gather different walks of clinical life. So we have clinicians, we have health IT developers, etc. We have a host a server for that one, so they can try. They've tried it already, so we've done some testing already. Maybe you could join our community of practice so that we can get in touch with you on how you can try the API calls for testing. I hope I answered that question, sir. And then another question, hi, I might have missed it, but how do we verify if private EMRAs viral hepatitis is really hepatitis B? It could also be hepatitis A. Yes. So actually, if it wasn't part of the discussion, I believe you might be a clinician. Um, for every time that we do terminology mapping, it has to be validated through a consensus by different stakeholders. So it has to be double checked um, by by clinicians if we are doing the mapping appropriately. Yon. So there has to be that certain level of validation. Hindi not, it's not possible. It would be highly risky for non subject matter experts mapping. While they may not be experts in mapping, at least there are informaticists in the Philippines that could help do the mapping and then just validate it by the subject matter expert. Okay, I hope I answered the question. So for the context of the presentation, medyo ano yon, medyo not clear yung terminology natin doon. Oh, okay, you raised your hand.
Hi.
Hi, Miss Juna. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes po. My question was more on parang, I understand that making the parang quote-unquote data dictionary, no, for the terminology service is going to be like a tedious process in terms of like validating, finalizing which terms to use. Siguro my question would be more on the side of the clinician. Yes, I'm a DTTB po pala, Doctor to the Barrio. So we have kasi like yun, the hepatitis B, very specific. Tapos at the same time, we have the non-specific din. Tapos I think it would really be parang kailangan matrain din yung doctors in using the more specific one instead of like the basket diagnosis, yung ganun. So parang how does the terminology service siguro or parang yung system natin will parang try to make sure na more specific yung pipiliin ng clinicians instead of it being parang vague, parang ganun. Thank you.
Yeah. So, babalik tayo dun, Doc, sa sa value sets. No? So, it really depend, may sinusunod kaming framework, no? Parang the SMART guideline, where we try to do policy, then operational, then machine readable. So, we'll take a step back muna, no? And parang, when we try to implement yung mga diagnosis for hepatitis, we can ask different hepatology experts, how do we want the data to be submitted, no? And then, pag kunyari gusto ko A, B, C, D, E na hepatitis, we can set that in a value set, no? Pag kunyari, it really depends on the implementation. So, wala naman tayong fixed solution for that one. So it really depends on um, the implementation. So for example, yun nga, if I say under my diagnosis I key in hepatitis, pwede if it can be um, there would be another field to specify, and then yung pag-specify natin ng hepatitis, naka-value set na yon. So we that value set, no, A, B, C, D, E will be defined by the hepatologists in our country. And then this value set will be uploaded sa ating master copy ng ating terminology service. So remember, Anto server has a syndication, no? So may master copy kayo na pinaka-root, and then it will just trickle down, no, to different health information systems that are connected to the terminology services. So whatever update, kunyari nagkaroon ng FGHIJ, no? So whatever response, sasabihin lang ng hepatologist na, ay teka lang, may bagong virus, bagong variant ng hepatitis. Please add GHIJK, ganyan. So pag nag-update tayo ng master copy ng terminology service, it will go down. So eventually, siguro after, kunyari, nag-implement today, by tomorrow siguro, pag nag-document ulit yung doctor na positive to for hepatitis, lalabas na yung next button na, oh, okay, I have to specify, is it A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, something like that. It really depends on the execution po nung use case natin. I hope I answered the question po.
All right. Thank you so much for that question. Again, reminding everyone, please update your names in the Zoom room and add your affiliation if you're comfortable so that we can recognize you easier during the Q&A session. Again, you may either use the chat box or the Q&A button, or you may use the raise hand function if you want to unmute yourself. And so are there any more questions from the group? Yes, Sir Paulo, maybe you want to add something to what Sir Burr previously mentioned?
Yeah, siguro this is in connection sa tanong ni Doc Juno. Ang tawag nito, para din ma-make sure natin na same yung or tama yung paggamit din ng mga clinicians and end users natin. Pag magde-deploy naman tayo ng mga value sets, code systems, just like ICD, ICD-11, we provide trainings naman and update events para din kung may mga bago or may mga updates tayo, ma-provide natin to dun sa mga end users natin. Yun lang yung additional ko. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Paulo. All right. So are there any other questions from the group? Maybe you can raise your particular use case and you want to ask how TS can be useful for that particular use case. And so I would just like to read what Doc Alvin mentioned. So while the grant from CSIRO is active, you can use our Fire Lab for free, but we're still working on the terms of conditions. Yes. So please stay tuned to our social media accounts and website regarding the Fire Lab. We'll be launching it in a very short while. Not very well soon. Yeah, yes, sir, Ber, go ahead.
Ayan,
You
there was a
wanna
follow-up message pala to me. Do you have slots for training for physicians and devs? So, follow us in our social media accounts, our COP. So we will be having a bootcamp very soon.
Yeah.
So, I think pwede naman i-announce yun. So, we will have a bootcamp very soon. Hindi ko muna sabihin yung kailan, basta we will have that. So, I think, yun, keep your, so, follow our socials and our community of practices Slack because syempre kayo unang makakaalam nung mga updates namin doon.
Ayun, medyo na-preempt na, pero we're supposed to
Sorry.
launch that during the last session, so December 4. So attend the December 4 session if you want to learn more about our future events in the next year. And so are there any other questions from the group? Going once? Going twice? Ayan, okay. Excited, itching to test our servers locally. Ayan, thank you so much for your excitement. So I believe we don't have any other question now from the group. So I think it's okay if we move on. All right. So now may I invite everyone to please turn on your camera and let's have a group photo. again, feel free to use the virtual background that we have sent via email. Pero if you haven't saved it, okay lang din naman. Any virtual background is fine. Okay. So, ayan. Is everyone ready? Okay. I'll give you guys 3 more seconds to turn on your camera. So, 3, 2, 1. Wala na po ba mag-on cam? Okay. So, let's take a photo now in 3, 2, 1. One more. All right. So, just quickly lang then again, let's wave to the camera for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Ayan. Okay. So, thank you so much, everyone. Let me just share back my screen. And so again, here resharing the remaining topic of our IOL 101 for this year, 2024. So we will be having the Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources or FHIR 101 with our interoperability analyst, Mr. Gerard Paulo Villanueva. And again, at the right side of the screen is the webinar Slack channel. So feel free to scan the QR code. And if you have remaining questions, please go ahead, chat them away. We'll be happy to answer your questions. And lastly, to receive your electronic certificates of participation and for us to improve our next sessions as well, kindly answer the evaluation form flashed on your screen. So once again, thank you. This is Gabby Velasquez. Have a great day and see you next Wednesday. And happy Science and Technology Week pala to UP Manila. All right. Thank you so much, guys, and we hope to see you in our next session.